Hello, we are in a new location. I figured that time has come for me to change my location to something a little more constant. Yes, it looks terrible. I'm sorry. I understand that, but I will try to make it look more appropriatable. I guess. So, today I want to talk about something a little bit different. Today I want to talk about a video game, specifically a horror video game. And I have a question about this specific horror video game franchise, to be more exact. Even though it might annoy some people to bring up, it's still a question that I find to be very relevant and I want to talk about. Here's the question. Is Five Nights at Freddy's overrated? For those of you who don't know, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Okay, let's be honest. Is there anyone who doesn't know what Five Nights at Freddy's is? Could you name 3 people who doesn't know what Five Nights at Freddy's is? You could. It wouldn't be easy, but you probably could. You could try it, but it won't be easy. You guys all know the story. Blah blah blah, restaurant, blah blah blah, animatronics, blah blah blah, plotting to kill you, blah blah blah, survive for 5 nights. But I'm talking about this popular franchise for a reason, because there is the possibility that it could be overrated. Okay. Before you leave a comment saying that I'm an idiot, or I suck, or should die in a fire, let me explain why this might be a possibility. First off, even if you like the game, you have to admit that the gameplay is somewhat flawed. I mean, all you're doing there is sitting in a chair and looking at a bunch of cameras, and that can become boring after a while. There's also this thing going between the Five Nights at Freddy's fans that Scott Cawthon, the creator of the game, is this writing genius, and he has hidden meanings throughout the game, which is spawning all kinds of fan theories online. So, is Scott really a genius? I mean, he's smart, don't get me wrong, and he did a really good job of the game. He did put a lot of effort into it, but I don't think he's as big as a genius as everybody says. I mean, it is an indie game, and it is independent. And he is an expert mostly on developing games. On writing, that's debatable. And yes, you could argue that in the first game there were those little newspaper articles hung up on the wall, and they weren't obviously in your face, and you had to really look for them. But even then, when you did find those articles, they were straightforward. They told you the story mostly. I mean, there was some mystery surrounding it, but it just came out with everything, and there is really nothing else to be presented. So Scott is kind of smart, but a genius, that's debatable. Another thing I've noticed is all over the internet, especially on YouTube, if anybody talks about Five Nights at Freddy's or makes a video about it, it will get tons of talk about it and it will get lots of views. The video doesn't even have to be that good, and it might not even have to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's at all. As long as it has Five Nights at Freddy's in the title, it will get views, which shows that the game is well known and talked about a lot. This reminds me of another game that was released a few years ago that had the exact same popularity that Five Nights at Freddy's has now. This game was Slender the 8 Pages. For those of you who don't remember, Slender the 8 Pages was a game about this man in a tall suit who tried to stalk you down, and you had to collect all 8 pages to escape him. The game was talked about a lot when it first came out, but now, not as much. After the game sequel was released in 2013, not a lot of people talked about Slender Man anymore, and same thing goes for the games. Not a lot of people play them anymore. I mean, yes, you could argue that today Slender Man is more popular than he was before 2012, but I mean, yes, people might be still talking about him. There might be people who still play the games, but enough to justify that it's still as popular as it was? Probably not. Things like this happen all the time. Something popular comes around, people talk about it a lot, and then they find something new and move on. The same thing is definitely going to happen to Five Nights at Freddy's, because that's just how the world works. Maybe at the end of the day, it's not that Five Nights at Freddy's is overrated, but maybe it's just that it won't be talked about as long as people are putting it on to be. Scott isn't as smart as people think he is, although, trust me, he is smart. And the game isn't as hidden as people might think. It's more straightforward than people would want to think. So, do I think Five Nights at Freddy's is overrated? Well, I might get tons of hate for saying this, but I sort of do. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad game. It's fun to play, and I really enjoy it. Although the game does rely a little bit on jump scares too much. The atmosphere is built greatly, although it's semi-ruined by the silly idea of the animatronic characters coming to kill you. I mean, any idea could work if you put effort into it for a story. But here, effort is put into it. It does work as much, not really. So, Five Nights at Freddy's is a fun game to play, but a scary experience? Not really. Although, if you haven't played Five Nights at Freddy's, I would recommend you check it out. At the end of the day, I do think it's overrated. I think it's talked more than people should deserve it to be. I don't think it's as creepy as people are putting it on to be, because it just relies mostly on jump scares. And it's more straightforward than people might think. I'll get tons of hate for saying this, like I said, but it's just my personal opinion. So, what do you think? Is Five Nights at Freddy's overrated, underrated, or do you think something completely different? Let me know, and I'll see you guys next time.